Hey everybody, my name is Adam Parks with Trinity Wealth Management. Again, coming to you today with Lori Vella. Lori is an attorney here in Tampa, and one of the reasons that I want to bring Lori on today is not only to say Happy National Estate Planning Week, but also because a lot of my clients are asking the question like, what do I need? What's involved in putting together an estate plan? Because the way we do things with Trinity Wealth Management is cash management, investment management, and risk management. And this really dovetails right into risk management really, really well. People don't know if they need an estate planning attorney or how it all works. And Lori's a good friend of mine from down here in Tampa. So wanted to bring her on the call. Lori, thank you for being here with us today and kind of going into this for us.
Hey Adam, thank you so much for having me on the call. It's been great to collaborate with you and work with you. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to talk to you. And it's so awesome that we're talking during National Estate Planning Awareness Week. It's
Yeah,
fitting, isn't it?
perfect timing. Yeah, it was funny because I didn't even notice it was until we already had booked this time. So this is great. Well, Lori, when I'm sitting down with my clients, a lot of times we're going through their insurance, making sure that they're properly insured, their investments are suitably allocated and risk from a risk standpoint and everything else. And then that third part is that risk management bucket, which some people allocate to like just insurance, but there's a whole nother arena of risk management that you deal with on a regular basis. Some don't really grasp it about an estate. That's a big thing that I get. I don't have an estate. Well, can you get
Yes.
in a little bit about why it's not like this big mansion behind a wooden or a brick wall, but it's more in depth than that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I get the same question. People come in or the same statement and say, hey, I don't have an estate. I have a simple plan. But then they start saying that they're on their second marriage. There's a blended family. They might have a child that has some, problems with drugs or something like that. Some siblings aren't speaking to each other. So first, when I talk to people, I let them know that an estate just doesn't mean rich people. Now, granted, estate planning does the people that are wealthy, they really need estate planning more because they can get breaks on taxes and things like that. But beyond that, when we're really talking about looking at everything you have, you kind of have to think of your estate as more than just what you own. You have to think about what you love and who you love and how you want to simplify things for them at a later date, because you're right, there's so many contingencies. And sometimes I feel like I'm the grim reaper or something, because I'm saying, well, how about this or how about this? But that's my job and that's your job too. We kind of think about the worst case scenario, because if the worst things happens, we want to make sure our clients are prepared, ready, and they feel secure. And that's what we both do, is we give people some peace of mind.
100%. I mean, even in my own situation, which I explained to you, is I have two daughters, and I mean, when they grow up, if they're going to kill me if they ever see this, but one of them is a spendthrift, and she's the older one, and she likes the nice, pretty things, and the other one is a little. She'll end up being a banker one day, or very, very conservative. My biggest fear, and why we like to put it, our personal did the trust is. The one daughter could then she's older, so she's 2 years. So at 18, if we didn't have a trust, at 18 years old, she gets the money. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't have made the best. I probably would have had an IROC Z and wrapped it around a tree at some point. But so my older daughter, I don't want her burning through her assets or funding some idiot's rock band because she fell in love or whatever, worst case scenario, and then making those bad money choices and then going into my second daughter's pot of money that's left over, earmarked specifically for her well-being in long term. So the spendthrift clause I know is very important with what you do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And a lot of people don't know how their kids are going to turn around out. For instance, like my son's only 6. It's like, I have no idea. He's got a piggy bank right now, but that's all I know. I'm trying to teach him about stocks, but beyond that, I have no idea what he's going to turn out as. But even people that have children that have good heads on their shoulders, what we have to realize is other people can come into their life. You mentioned your daughter like falling in love with a rock star. People can come into their life and influence them, can get to the funds that you worked hard for. So, I sit across the table from parents, and they've worked hard their entire life, and they're doing this to maybe contribute a little bit to college. It's hard to contribute a lot to college because they're so expensive right now, but maybe they can have something set aside for their children after they look for, their own funds to make sure they're safe and secure. Then they look for their kids as well. And so even if you have a kid that's like, hey, listen, they're getting all A's, everything's going to be fine. When you get that first distribution, or when you get a check, even however you're even 18, 19, 20, 21, even before 25, it's like the lottery. So
Mm.
all of a sudden you're getting this big distribution. You're like, hey, I can buy things. And then what happens is undesirable people get attracted into your life. And if people use a will and they put a trust within the will, that's all public knowledge. So
Right.
there's people out there, believe it or not, I sound like a Lifetime movie, but there's people out there that look at the public records to see who has come into money and they befriend them. So what we're doing with planning is we're trying to make sure we, try to go to revocable trust as much as possible, just for the privacy's sake, but try to keep our kids secure, because even though our kids are wonderful and we've done a good job raising them, we want to protect them from like everyone else too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also cases that will, as we talk to people all the time, we run into these cases where, worst case scenario, two spouses very much in love, one passes away, but they don't have a trust. That second spouse, grieving, whatever, gets married again. And then if she were to pass away, or he were to the other spouse, well, the other spouse is now in control of all of those assets. And who are they going to give those assets to? Their own children from a previous marriage, or your children? So I like that in the sake of, you're not going to give my money to some idiots.
Yes.
It's, of course, I'm being
Yeah. It's
argumentative.
hard because you love and trust your spouse, but you don't necessarily love and trust the person they're going to ultimately marry. And it's funny because this week I'm going to be talking about Tabitha. So Tabitha is the woman who's moving in on the grieving husband. So the wife died. Tabitha's moving in on the grieving husband. She's cooking him home cooked dinners. She's doing all these things. And the husband's like, I miss a partnership. I miss having someone to care for me. She won't be so bad. Everyone on the street talks about her, and there's rumors about her that she's looking for a man, but certainly she's not a gold digger. I trust this woman. So they get married. And meanwhile, Tabitha is thinking about her dog, Coco, and her dog, Coco, needs some doggy accessories. She wants to go on a yacht. She wants to do all these things. And she is playing her cards right to make sure that these kids get shipped off somewhere. And she has a wonderful time with the grieving spouse. And so these are the things that it's hard sometimes to talk about them with people. I know how it feels when you're sitting across from people and you try to raise these issues, and sometimes the spouses look at each other and say, well, I don't know what I feel, but it's really, if we focus on protection of the money, what can we do to protect the money? And so one good thing that we can do is, instead of leaving everything outright to the husband, everything outright to the wife, what if we set up a trust in the beginning so that 70% of your assets, 50% of your assets, 30% go into the trust for the kids immediately. So that money is earmarked for the kids, and then the remaining spouse can play with the rest of the money, because we might need to leave them some money so they can live, so they can pay the bills, and so they can just go with life. But we might want to have a nest egg for the kids. And this is one of the things that we have to kind of focus on, is talking about these things. Do you find that people feel uncomfortable sometimes when you're talking to them about what ifs?
Absolutely. Well, when we go into the insurance conversation, and then we always bring up the estate planning idea, I always kind of say, you know what, all that uncomfortableness, imagine it, it's like in a shoebox and it's up in your closet. And every once in a while, every 3 to 5 years, as you would recommend as well, you take it out, look at it. Is everything still good? Yeah, great. Let's put it back away now. Everything is good. So put it back, and let's not talk about it anymore. But it's healthy and very, very wise to do that, to have that conversation, make sure that everything's good, everything's set up the way you want. Because we've actually ran into a situation where there was a spouses and they never changed the beneficiary. And now this person's married, he passes away, but this spouse has been married to him for 15, 20 years, but it still went to the former spouse because they never changed the beneficiaries. There's all kinds of things that happen, but you need to have those conversations on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that's why I really like talk with people. It's like, there's software out there so people can get easy wills in 10 minutes. But when
Mhm.
you think about someone getting a will that fast, really, how does this will have anything to do with this person's estate plan? And once they give you the will, how are they helping you do the other things? It's not about just having a will or having a trust. It's looking at the whole picture. And you make a great point with these designations. If people don't list their accounts properly, then all of your good intentions are just thwarted. They're just gone. Because I can have a will that says anything I want, but if I have a non-probate asset like a retirement fund, life insurance, something like that, and I list someone else on those accounts, they're going to bypass the will and they're going to go right to those people. And so that's a great point, because sometimes people have their siblings and then they get married and they forgot to add their siblings, or they get divorced and they forgot to take somebody off. And that's why it's a good deal, a good idea. Every year, I offer people a free review every year. Tell me what's happening. You might not think it's relevant, but I want to know. Tell me what is happening. Maybe you suddenly have some feelings about your daughter's husband. Maybe he was caught doing something, and maybe we want to start a trust now. Maybe maybe you got a pet and we want to have a pet trust because pets cost like $10,000. They cost a lot of money. And some people, I used to be that way because I used to have two dogs before I had my child, and those were my babies. And, I spent a lot of money keeping one of them alive, but it costs a lot of money. And so these are the things that we need to talk about. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, but it's kind of like insurance, like what you were saying. You kind of just draft it and you put it away and don't think about it anymore. Just live your life. Just go out and live. Don't focus on dying. Don't focus on anything except having an amazing life, knowing that if something happens, we have everything in place to make sure your kids stay out of foster care, because that's a big issue too. We don't want foster care if guardians aren't named properly, to make sure your kids aren't taken advantage of by predators, to make sure we protect kids that if they have drinking problems or if they, have gambling problems, whatever it is, they're spendy. They spend so much, like you were saying, that it might be a potential problem. Like these are the things we think about just for security. I mean, do you find that people realize that we're doing peace of mind planning and we're kind of doing things just to kind of save them from aggravation someday?
Yeah, actually, I just had a conversation with my wife last weekend. We were talking about this because we wanted to review our stuff and kind of go over things. And I was telling her how it is an empowering feeling when I know that, okay, I have enough sufficient, or nobody has enough life insurance. Everybody should have $10 billion worth of life insurance. It's better what you can afford. But we have insurance that's suitable for our needs. And that makes me feel good and sleep at night. Peace of mind is what you were saying. And then if our trust is done and updated the way it needs to be, like you said, every day after that is kind of like, okay, now my family's taken care of. It's such a peace of mind. I don't have to worry about it. And that piece of a huge, very, very important puzzle is now taken care of. So let me ask you this. Here's the flip side of that. Say you are with your spouse and everything is great and you do fall in love and you do have a wonderful life. But something happens. This is something that happened in one of our cases recently, where the husband actually didn't pass away. The beneficiary stuff was fantastic, but didn't pass away. And the wife, all of his assets were he got in a car accident. So he had a concussion and he was temporarily out of commission. He's fine now, but during that time, she was thinking that she was going to need to access those dollars to pay for his medical care, but everything was in an IRA or a 401k and tucked away, and she couldn't access them because she's only the beneficiary. And I know that you and I have talked before about the financial power of attorney and what is it and why is it so important, because she was stuck. She couldn't access if needed. Luckily, it didn't get to that point, but if it did get to that point, she couldn't get access to anything or vice versa if it was something happened to her, because there was no financial power of attorney in place.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Once someone turns 18, that really is the time that you really have to start getting your financial durable power of attorney in order. So basically, they're documents that allow other people to make financial and sometimes medical decisions for you if you're not able to. So they're called durable powers of attorney because it means even if something happens to you, maybe you're in a coma, maybe a car accident, maybe you're in surgery and you can't make any decisions, you can't sign anything, someone else can make those decisions for you. They're a very powerful document, obviously. So you want to make sure that you safeguard that document as best as you can, store it in a place, maybe don't give a copy to someone else yet, and you kind of keep it in your folder and tell someone where it is in case they need it. But that goes along the same line as like a healthcare surrogate and a living will. Like I talk to so many people and they're saying things like, well, it doesn't matter. I'll be dead, or I trust them. They can pull the plug. I don't care what they do to me. But what we have to realize is anyone making a decision on your behalf is suffering. It is very hard. And I thank God I've never had to go through it. But to make these types of decisions for other people, it's incredibly hard for people to decide, well, what would they have wanted? Would they have wanted to be fed through tubes? Would they have wanted this? And if we say things ahead of time, so all of these documents, they're called advanced directives. And the reason is we're directing now how we want to be treated then. So all we're saying is, this is what I want you to do. Because it's kind of like, would you ever like go to a restaurant and like make a huge mess and spill the coffee everywhere and spill the food everywhere and not offer to kind of clean it up? Like you would kind of feel bad about leaving someone with like your dirty mess. And that's kind of the same thing. Like if we're not doing healthcare surrogates, durable powers of attorney, and all of these kind of advanced directives, it's like leaving someone else with a mess. And they're going to have to clean it up while they're already suffering and they're going through guilt and long-term issues. And I've talked to people that have had to make these decisions, and they're telling me like, Lori, you have to stress to your clients more than ever that make sure they have these documents, because it seems kind of like overkill. It seems like, why am I filling out all these documents? Nothing's going to happen. Things happen to other people. But unfortunately, none of us know what life has in store for us. And, that's just the truth. You and I don't know. No one knows. And so if we kind of put these things together, it'll be for your situation. If they had the durable power of attorney, they could have moved money. They could have done things to help the husband. And I'm really happy to hear that he's doing better. That's great news.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you think about this, I think it was here in Florida, the Terry Schiavo case,
Yes.
where the family wanted to keep her alive, and I think the husband wanted to, or vice versa, wanted
You're right.
by her. There was no documents in place, and it ruined the family because now they couldn't grieve together. I don't know how much it must have spent in legal fees, and nobody won really. I mean, nobody won in that situation. I mean, even if you win, you lose because your loved one is suffered. But just one simple document could have avoided all of that hassle.
Yeah, and I tell people that all the time. I mention her and I say, this is the case. This was the issue where the husband who had, the rights to do things was fighting with the parents, and the parents had a legal case, so everything was on hold for an extended period of time, multiple years, that she was being kept alive, and the parents didn't want her to let her go. And the thing is, we don't know what Terry would have wanted to do. So if Terry could have made that clear, it would have made it easier. And you're right, it would have saved the family from falling out, because even in good situations, when someone dies, there's still some negative feelings, even if you're not openly hostile with your family. Even if you're just a normal family, a death brings all these issues to the forefront, or someone being sick, and it's stressful. Yeah. So you either can make choices now when you're just sitting here and life is good, or your family has to make them in very stressful situations. And it's hard to kind of think clearly. Like now people have the opportunity to kind of sit back and say, okay, well, what do I really want to do? Do I want to avoid probate, which you have to have an attorney in Florida, and it costs thousands of dollars, because I also handle probate. So do you want to have probate, or do we want to sit down? And it doesn't always have to be this like full blown plan. Like I just got off the phone with someone and they're like, listen, like my parents are old school. They're from Italy. They don't want to spend a lot of money. Like this is what they want. And it's like, you know what? Everything doesn't have to be major. It doesn't have to be this like platinum thing. We can sit down and think, okay, what kind of estate do they have? Could we do a deed? Maybe a life estate deed? Can we name beneficiary designations? Do you need to sit down with like a financial planner or advisor and really sit down and think, how can I benefit in terms of taxes and things like that? So it's great. I like being able to kind of refer people to you as well and say like, listen, this is really what you need, because for a lot of people, it's hard to look at the accounts. I know for me personally, I don't like logging into the accounts and having to deal with it and seeing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's nice to kind of give that to somebody else to kind of help me.
Yeah. That's great. Well, we've kind of gone over a couple of things. We've gone over the healthcare power of attorney, the financial power of attorney. I know I believe there's 5 main ones that you would recommend, or that most of us would recommend. Can you kind of go into the importance of like the
like
will,
the HIPAA form?
Yeah, that's the living will, and the difference. Actually, that was something that somebody recently asked me, and I think it's better for coming out of an attorney, because I'm not giving legal advice. See here, that compliance.
Yeah.
Legal advice. The difference between a living will and a
Last will.
Last will, yes.
And then there's a living trust. So this is how confusing it is. We have a living trust, we have a living will, and then we have a last will and testament. And they're all vitally different things. So people always call me and say, I need a living will. And it's like, well, hold on. Do you realize the living will is an advance directive that you put forth that if I need to be kept alive and I also have a terminal illness, I need life support, and two doctors agree that I have no chance of a normal life, that's someone saying they want to kind of pull the plug. That's where you get the pull the plug. That's what a living will is. So that's a health directive about how I want to be treated at the end stages of life. Now, the next thing is a last will. So, a last will and testament is a document that you put together that goes forth and talks about all of your assets, who your beneficiaries are, and how your debts should be paid. That's what we file with the probate court. And we open up a file with the probate court and says this person died. We publish a notice in the paper, and creditors flock in, which they do, and everyone comes. Tico, water bill,
Wow.
cable bill, phone bill, Verizon, everyone files a claim. And then if there's only any probate assets, we pay them. And so that's why we want to keep things out of probate, because even if these people are coming in and saying if they have claims, if you set beneficiary designations and everything's going out, there's no probate assets and there's nothing to pay those creditors. I'm not saying you should not pay your bills, but if there's things, small things, and you don't have the money, it's an insolvent estate and you don't pay for it. And then the third thing is a living trust. What that means is it works while you're still alive as well. So I can start a trust right now. I can put a house in it if I want to. I probably wouldn't because I have a minor child and it's homestead. And that's another talk about why I wouldn't do that. But basically, a living trust helps you manage your estates. So you can either change the name of all your accounts to be the name of the trust, or you can keep your accounts as is and name the beneficiary of the trust. But it's a place that the trust grows with you. And so it helps you from a young, vital, healthy adult, and it keeps going. The trust is still the legal owner until the time when you need help managing your assets. The trust will continue to help you until your death, and then the trust will name another trustee, and someone else will will go forward based on the terms of the document. So basically that's the difference. And it's really confusing. And all people kind of really need to know is I need to have some health documents in order. I need some financial documents in order. And I have this estate. I need to decide what's the best thing to do with my house. And we're going to analyze who's in your family, what's your relationship to them, what's your mortgage on the house. Then we're going to analyze what kind of accounts I have, what kind of retirement accounts. I would love to talk to the financial planner, work together as a team so we can decide the best thing to do. And then we decide who am I benefiting and how old they are. Because if they're minors, there's some things we have to consider. If they're adult, it's different. And if it's Florida homestead, the rules are extremely complicated. And if someone's married, they have certain rights to certain things. And so all of it kind of comes together. And what I try to do personally is make things as easy as possible. I try not to sit across from someone and just kind of like give you all these like legal definitions like I just did right now. What I do is kind of sit down and I want someone to talk to me. I want someone to tell me about their family. I want them to tell me about their concerns, tell me about their life. And from listening to someone talk, I take notes. And I almost always can come up with a complete plan because I see what's important to them. I see like really what's bothering them. They're really worried about their minor children. Okay, we're going to focus on that. We're going to set it all up. They're worried about there's a brother they haven't talked to in a long time and they want to make sure he doesn't take money or something like that. So I think you probably do the same too, kind of just talking to our clients and getting to know them. We can decide what's the best plan for them.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have pushback on the price to get everything like this, these very, very important documents put together. And I like to push back a little bit and say, well, you're going to pay one way or the other, either 3 times as much or 10 times as much going through probate, or you're going to end up paying, a very fair price here to get your estate documents put together. Or in other words, spend 1% to protect the other 99%, which is really important.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's true because it does. But what I've realized though is it costs money to do everything nowadays. I just had my roof done in my not the whole roof, just like a little patch done, and that was like several $1,000s. And I'm noticing if I'm doing this or doing this in the community, like everything does cost more. It does seem like things are rising, and it's unfortunate, but that's kind of where we are. But when it comes to something like your will and trust, I try to tell people, like, if we do it right, we can try to do this so it lasts your whole life, maybe some tweaks here and there, maybe we have to redo it for some issue. But these are documents that are going to last you for a very long time, and they are going to save you from other things. Like probate is very expensive. You know, the most simple estate will be $2,500 plus costs, and it can go way up, you know, $15,000. So probate is really expensive. So it's kind of like when people are like, so what? I'll be dead. Well, that's your estate paying it. That money's come out of your estate. So that's money getting taken away from your kids. And so when you kind of think about the time that goes into it, because yeah, I can go online and I could just like get a will within 5 minutes, and like it's great. But you know how many people hire me to go over the wills that they got online just to see if they did a good job? And I'm like, I just don't want to tell you things to make you spend money, but this is wrong because you need a trust for your kids because your child's a minor or something like that. And you know, probate litigation is a real thing. Like people are fighting over these things because the wills aren't done properly. So if you kind of just put money out there to have it done properly, make sure your financial plan is in order and all these things, it really will save you a lot of grief later, and it will save your family so much aggravation and legal fees down the road.
100%. And I know finally, well, a couple of things that I'll let you go. And thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thank you.
But I know that because we moved here from Chicago and you moved here from New York,
Yep.
and so we kind of got smart and said we don't like that cold weather, and we moved to Florida. And I know a lot of people, a lot of my clients never realized that when they move from those locations or wherever it was, most of them are coming here. No, not many people go north, but as they're coming down here, that is a good time to have your documents checked out too, because laws vary state to state.
Yeah, for sure. But I tell people, you know, for instance, like a revocable trust, that should be good in any state. And so we need to look there to see like what year you did it, because there might be certain provisions within the trust that need to be updated. And because it's 10 years old, because you move states, maybe we want to do a restatement of the trust. When there's certain things like wills, Florida has a full faith and credit clause. So they will recognize a will drafted in another state if it was properly executed in that state. That's great. However, there's other things we have to realize because Florida has certain restrictions about who can be a personal representative. It needs to be a Florida citizen or it needs to be a close blood family relative. And there's a little chart that says like how closely they need to be related. So we might need to update that. But when it comes to healthcare documents and durable power of attorney, you absolutely want to update those. And the reason is when you think about hospitals and when you think about banks, what do you think about? Sometimes I think about bureaucratic red tape and CYA too, because everyone wants to protect themselves. People don't want to look at a document and use a document that doesn't look like anything they've seen before. So if you bring in something from Ohio and the bank is down here in Tampa and they're looking at it and they don't feel right about it. So what you want to do is always have your documents drafted when you get to your new state. And then you want to go one step further. You want to take that durable power of attorney and march into the bank and say, this is what I plan to use someday. Do you have a problem with this? Let me know now. Because if they do, I want them to call me up and I can make changes. I can talk to the bank. We want to make sure that the documents we draft for you are going to be good and they're not going to cause you issues one day. So yeah, you make a great point. And so not in all cases, we don't always have to update the plan, but it's a great time for me to kind of look at your documents and analyze them and decide like, is this a time where we need to get new documents, some new documents, or make some kind of amendments?
Awesome. Yeah, we actually had a case recently where, and now that kids are going, well, they should have been going to college these days, but COVID, who knows? But the college kids, when they turn 18 years old, one little tip to want to make sure that this gets in the recording too is when they're 18 years old, the HIPAA laws are still intact. So you may have an 18, 19-year-old child that's now away at college that gets injured, and you can't get any information about them because they are now a legal adult, and HIPAA is not going to tell you. We had a situation like that before. Unfortunately, he just broke his leg, but his mom was 1,000 miles away, worried sick, and couldn't get any additional information because of that. So if you're going to have a
Yeah.
kid that's going away to college, or anybody who's a
Mm-hmm.
aspiring adult, have them sign that power of attorney as well. At least you can get that information out there.
Yeah, there's actually 3 forms. I'll just throw it in there. They
Sure,
should do
sure.
they should do the durable power of attorney. They should do the healthcare surrogate, and it does not matter if you're paying their insurance bills. You might be paying their insurance bills. It doesn't matter. You don't have rights anymore to their legal information, their medical information. And one step further, if you want to know what their grades are, even if you're paying the bills and they won't tell you their grades, you can write to the school and you can get a certain document that you can sign. Will allow you to get access to the grades.
That's a new one. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
figure out that one. Just gonna take that advice myself in a few years.
Yeah.
Well, Lori, thanks again for being here today, and happy Estate Planning Awareness Week to you. And I definitely owe you a big one for doing this, and I appreciate you being a resource for me and for my clients.
Thank you, Adam, so much. It was so great appearing here. And yeah, you've been such a big help to me. And I look forward to working with you more.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lori. And if Lori, if somebody's locally or in New York and wants to get a hold of you and maybe do a discovery call and see if their documents are in need of review or if they need to get something
Yeah.
established, how would they reach out to you?
Well, you can send me an email at info@lorivella.com. So that's LORIV as in Victor, ELLA. You can send me a text at 813-575-2201. And so I handle probate in all counties in Florida, also New York probate, and I do wills, trust, and in both states. So I'll be happy to reach out to you and get on a 10-minute discovery call just to see if we're a good fit for each other.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Lori. I appreciate you being on here. And folks, if you need to get your stuff in order, like I've been probably pounding on you to do anyway, reach out to Lori and get that taken care of. So on our next quarterly review, you could say, yes, I did it. I'm all squared away. And you're going to feel better because of it too. So Lori, thanks again. We'll see you again real soon.
Okay, take care.